This daughter thought she showed good intentions when helping her father rebuild his garden. But everything went sideways when she cut down her dad's favorite tree in the process, because her actions revealed that there was something hidden underneath the tree, and when she went to investigate, her face turned pale. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Ava was struggling with the loss of her mother, but she realized her father was having an even rougher time trying to live without his partner. The young student decided to leave school for a while and return home to support her father, not knowing she would soon regret this decision. The day after she arrived, he already shared his big plans. "I want to rebuild the garden," he said, as the garden had always been Ava's mother's pride and joy. She got to work and started clearing out the plants and flowers. Eventually, only one thing remained: an old tree. Ava tried pushing it over but quickly realized she didn't have the strength. "There has to be something I can use," she muttered as she searched the garden. Then, she suddenly exclaimed and grabbed an axe from beneath a pile of tools. Ava started chopping immediately, not realizing the mistake she made. Her grunts echoed through the now empty garden until the tree finally fell. Some of the roots were revealed after the fall, and when Ava noticed it, she smiled. His severe expression and worried tone took Ava aback, and she quickly followed him to the garden. She expected him to be thankful or excited to get to work, but he reacted very differently. The moment her father set foot inside the garden, he froze, and when he turned around, he was furious at her. "What have you done?" he asked with a quiver as he stood beside the tree. Ava didn't know how to respond and slowly approached her father, trying to calm him down. But with each step she took, his face became increasingly anxious, and without warning, he grabbed Ava by the arm and pulled her away. Her mind was filled with questions. Why was her father behaving like this? Had she done something wrong? Why was her father behaving so weird suddenly? "What is going on?" she asked. But her father remained in his seat and kept dodging her questions, but she would soon find out the real reason for his behavior. Ava hoped her father's behavior would change for the better, but instead it got even worse. Things reached the boiling point when Ava was getting ready for bed. As she was getting ready, she heard the door to the garden open and close. Ava looked up and expected to see the garden light turn on, but it didn't. Ava carefully moved the curtains a little to peek into the garden. She pierced the darkness, and after her eyes adjusted, Ava saw her father knelt down by the fallen tree. His hands were moving and his body was shaking, but she also noticed that he kept looking around nervously. What was he doing? Ava kept watching, trying to figure out what her father was doing so late at night in the garden. But from her bedroom window she couldn't see what was going on, and eventually her father was done and returned inside. And that's when things got even weirder, as she could hear him sob downstairs. A new plan quickly formed in her head, and she waited for her father to go to bed. When Ava was sure he was asleep, she went downstairs as quietly as possible. She took a deep breath, opened the garden door, and stepped outside. She hoped her father hadn't heard anything. Ava carefully approached the tree. There were some marks in the sand where her father had sat. As she had seen from her window, her father had kneeled beside the roots that were revealed after the tree fell. "What were you doing here?" Ava whispered under her breath as she shone her flashlight between the roots. The situation became weirder and weirder as there appeared to be nothing. Until the light beam moved over the ground before Ava, and suddenly something caught her attention. It appeared out of nowhere and was instantly gone. She quickly realized something reflected the light as she moved it, and when she moved closer, she saw something small stick out. What was it? Was this her father's doing? Her eyes grew as a metallic box was revealed. Without hesitation, she started to clear the dirt around it. She had to know what this was. Within seconds, the box was free, and Ava could take it out. Her mind was racing with questions. The box and its contents rattled, and the sound carried through the silent night. After some struggle, it opened, and the inside dazzled her. For a moment, Ava couldn't do anything but stare at the box's contents. It was filled with jewels and valuable jewelry. Where did they come from, and why were they in a box underneath this tree? Had her father just buried them? But why? Suddenly, her breath faltered as realization kicked in. Her father started behaving weirdly the moment he saw the fallen tree. He pulled her away when she approached him beside the tree. He was busy at the tree in the dark of night. There was only one conclusion: her father had stolen these jewels. Tears rolled down her cheeks as the thought entered her mind. Her parents weren't rich, and why hide them under a tree if not to hide his crime? She grabbed the box and stood up, no longer caring about being silent. "Dad, come here now!" she yelled when she entered the house. Ava sat down at the table and put the box in front of her. The sound of her father's sobs echoed through the room, and Ava was taken aback. Her crying father made the situation even more confusing, and for a moment, Ava didn't know what to do. She looked from him to the box on the table and hesitated, but then confronted him about her findings. "What is this? Why is it buried in the garden?" she asked, trying to sound determined. But her father continued sobbing for a while until he abruptly stopped. He sniffed one last time, looked up, and stared at Ava. "Why did you dig that up?" he said, ignoring Ava's questions. Tension filled the room. "I want to know what is happening," she demanded. When her father set foot in the room, he froze and remained in place. Now, he slowly shuffled to his chair and sat down. "The jewelry inside that box belonged to your mother," her father said with a broken voice. The words hit her like a tidal wave. Tears started rolling down her face as Ava had difficulty processing them. Her father's answer only caused her to have more questions. "But I have never seen them before," she thought out loud. And why did her father behave so weirdly about it? But before Ava could ask that question, her father had already started answering her first thought. He explained that the jewelry originally belonged to Ava's grandmother and that Ava's mother always kept them behind lock and key. "She only wore them on special occasions, so that's why you probably never saw them before," he said. Ava listened breathlessly to her father's explanation, but that wasn't all. The old man suddenly stood up from his chair and walked over to the box. Ava watched her father take out all the jewels and valuables and was surprised to see him open a compartment underneath. What was he doing? Ava's breathing faltered for the second time that night as she saw her father take out an urn. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked breathlessly. Her father wiped away a tear and nodded. He came upon the jewelry when clearing out her side of the closet. It confronted him with her absence, so he planned to bury them with the urn beneath the tree to create a memorial. Ava couldn't believe what her father was saying. She was relieved her father wasn't some sort of criminal, but she was sad she ruined his beautiful plan. She quickly stood up and rushed toward her father. "I'm so sorry," she said as she embraced him. Ava couldn't find the words to explain how she felt because she had ruined his plan. But then something suddenly crossed her mind. The garden may be empty, and she may have destroyed her dad's favorite tree, but that doesn't mean there can't be a memorial. She realized her father had given up on the memorial because the tree was gone, but Ava wouldn't let that happen. She was determined to help her father build a lovely memorial. "We're going to build the perfect memorial," Ava said to her father as she looked him straight in the eyes. The next day, the duo cleared the whole garden and started planning the new one. Av helped her dad decide how to remember his wife, and they started the project together. Eventually, the new garden took shape, and only one thing was missing: the metallic box. Ava and her father had decided to place it beneath a bonsai tree. Together, they gently put it in the freshly dug hole and placed the tree on top, finishing the garden and closing this chapter in their life.